Hello, and welcome to Awakening Purple Light. In today's video, we're going to look closely at one of the most misunderstood questions in Buddhism, not as philosophy, but as something revealed in the final moments of life. Can karma truly be transformed before death? Or does death simply expose the mind we have been training all along? In a hospital room, just before dawn, the sound of the heart monitor beeps steadily, dry, and mechanical, like a countdown clock. Outside the window, the sky is changing color. Not quite night, not quite day. That in-between moment feels a lot like the moment when a human being stands between life and death. And right here, a question humanity has carried for thousands of years quietly emerges once again. If karma is something that follows us across many lifetimes, if karma does not disappear just because of a prayer, then why is it that some people, right before they die, seem incredibly peaceful in their eyes, peaceful in their breathing, so peaceful that even the people standing nearby can feel it. And then there are others who, despite doing good deeds their entire lives, still leave this world in panic, clinging, and fear. So in the end, is it actually possible to transform karma before death? Or is this just a comfort story people tell themselves when facing something unavoidable? If you have ever asked yourself this question, stay with me, because the answer will not be comforting, but it will be honest. In this video, we are not looking for miracles. There is no three-step method to erase karma. There is no ritual that promises to change fate in the final minutes of life. Instead, we are going to look directly at how Buddhism, especially the parts that are rarely talked about, understands karma, death, and the final moment of consciousness. We are going to walk through an important paradox: why Buddhism says karma is extremely difficult to change, yet also affirms that a single moment of mind can determine the direction of an entire cycle of birth and death. And more importantly, we will see why so many people completely misunderstand the phrase transforming karma before death. But before going any further, one thing needs to be made clear. This video is not meant to attack any religion, belief system, or personal faith. If you believe in prayer, rituals, or divine protection, you have every right to keep that belief. What you are about to hear does not ask you to abandon your faith. It simply invites you to look more deeply at how the mind actually works when the protective layers of life begin to fall away. Because when death approaches, human beings stop performing roles. And at that moment, what appears is not the belief you talk about, but the mental habits you have lived with your entire life. But to understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. What is karma? In everyday language, karma is often understood like a sentence. Do bad things and you will be punished. Do good things and you will be rewarded accordingly. A moral spreadsheet. An invisible ledger of debts. But in Buddhism, karma does not work that way. Karma is not punishment. Karma is momentum. Like pushing a rock down a hill, you do not need to keep pushing it. It keeps rolling, not because someone is punishing the rock, but because a force has already been set in motion. Every action, every word, every repeated thought, all of them leave an imprint on the mind. And that imprint is karma. But here's the part very few people pay attention to. Not all karma ripens immediately. Not all karma has the same strength. And not all karma is unchangeable. In the scriptures, karma is described as seeds. Some seeds have already sprouted. Some are buried deep in the soil. And some can dry out if they are no longer watered by conditions. Karma is like a river. A river has direction. It has speed. It has momentum. You cannot make water that has already flowed turn back upstream. But you can dig a new channel. You can slow the current. You can change where the water eventually flows. And this is where an important question begins to appear. If karma is a river, then what determines its final direction? The last action of a lifetime? A final prayer? or something deeper, quieter, that has been prepared for a very long time. Many people believe that as long as they do enough good deeds before dying, as long as they chant enough times, as long as the right ritual is performed, then karma can be transformed. This belief does not come out of nowhere. It comes from fear. The fear that a lifetime of mistakes will be settled in a single, irreversible moment. But if karma were that easy to change, then why does Buddhism emphasize lifelong practice? Why not wait until old age and only then begin? This is the contradiction we are about to step into next. And it is not comfortable because it forces us to face a difficult truth. Death is not where you create a new person. It is where your true self is revealed. But wait, if that is true, then why are there still stories in the scriptures about people who undergo powerful transformation right before death? Why are there cases of sudden turning back at the final moment? Is there a deeper layer we have not yet touched? Death always comes with a quiet promise that everything can still be fixed. That if there is one last moment, there is still hope. That promise gives birth to many familiar beliefs. That doing enough good at the end is enough. That reciting the right verse or calling the right name will do it. That if someone helps you at the final second, everything will be rearranged. These beliefs are not wrong in a moral sense. They come from compassion, from the wish that no one has to die in despair. But the real question is not whether the belief is beautiful. The question is whether it matches how the mind actually works. Because if this is misunderstood, people may live their entire lives relying on a very dangerous delay. Many people think, it is fine, I will do it later. There is still time near the end. The final moment is what matters. But pause here for a moment. If the final moment matters that much, then why does Buddhism not teach people to practice only in the final moment? Why is the entire path described as a long process, repetitive, boring, and sometimes deeply painful? This is the first point of conflict, because in Buddhism, the moment near death is not when the mind is strongest. It is when the mind is most exposed. There is no work to cling to, no social role, no image to protect. And when everything falls away, what remains is not what you believe, but what you are used to living with. Imagine the mind as a field. What have you been planting there your entire life? Reactivity, resentment, control, or observation, awareness, and letting go? At the end of life, there is no time to plant new seeds. You can only harvest what has already grown. And this is where many people start to feel uneasy. Because if this is true, then transforming karma at the final moment is not nearly as simple as people like to say. But wait, then why are there still stories of people who undergo profound transformation right before death? People who live confused lives, yet leave this world in peace? Does this not prove that karma can change at the last second? The answer lies in a very small detail, one that is often overlooked. Those transformations do not happen in the last few minutes. They happen when a truth is seen, and that seeing has been prepared for a long time, even if the person never called it practice. Some people suffer their entire lives, but they learn how to face pain instead of running from it. Some people never study scriptures, but they live with loss long enough that resistance finally softens. When death comes, their minds no longer need to fight, not because they erased karma, but because they stopped adding resistance. This is an extremely important distinction. Buddhism does not say that you can use the final moment to create better karma than your past. It says that you can only stop reinforcing old tendencies if you have already become familiar with that before. And if you are not familiar, the final moment is not the time to learn. Think about this. When you panic, is it easy for you to be calm? When you are in pain, is it easy to observe? When you are afraid, is it easy to let go? If in everyday life, the answer is no, then why would we expect that in the moment of dying, when everything is 10 times more intense, we would suddenly be able to do it? This is not judgment. It is a very cold observation. And this observation leads to another truth, one that is even harder to swallow. In Buddhism, the moment near death is not when karma is transformed. It is when karma ripens with its greatest force. The tendencies repeated throughout life rise up very quickly, very clearly, and very honestly. If the mind has been trained in fear, fear arrives first. If the mind has been trained in clinging, the final moment becomes a fierce grasping. And if the mind has been trained to observe, to return, to not chase, then even in pain, there is still space. But here, another question appears. If everything is already shaped like this, what hope is left for human beings? Is Buddhism saying that if you live wrong, it is over? No. And this is where a major misunderstanding begins to unravel. Buddhism does not say karma cannot change. It says karma does not change the way people want it to. You cannot change karma with a single action. You change karma by changing the momentum of the mind. And that does not happen in the final moment. It happens across thousands of small moments that people usually ignore. But if that is the case, then why does the idea of transforming karma before death still exist? Is there a deeper layer, a turning point in understanding we have not yet reached? Because if karma does not change at the final second, then what is actually being transformed in those stories? There is a very strange moment that many people experience when facing death. Not the most painful moment, not the most frightening moment, but a brief moment when all questions suddenly fall silent. No more why me. No more if only. No more bargaining with fate. Only knowing. That moment in Buddhism is not called transforming karma. It is called something else. Seeing. And right here, the entire way we understand karma begins to flip upside down. Up to now, when we talk about karma, we usually talk about what has been done, actions, mistakes, merit, as if karma were a warehouse of the past and death were the moment of inventory. But in a deeper Buddhist understanding, karma does not live in the past. Karma lives in how the mind responds in the present. The past only provides momentum. The present is where the force is actually operating. And the moment near death is the present magnified to its absolute maximum. Every mental habit is exposed. There is no time left to hide. No space left to postpone. And this is the pivot point. What determines the direction of the cycle of birth and death is not the total amount of karma you have created, but what the mind is doing with that karma right at the moment it ripens. Listen very slowly to this part. Two people experience the same karmic result, the same pain, the same loss, the same confrontation with death. One sinks into panic. The other does not. The karma is the same. The result is the same. What is different is the mind. And this is where many people misunderstand the phrase transforming karma. No karma is erased. No past disappears. What is transformed is the way the mind comes into contact with karma. There is a very ancient example that is also extremely precise. Karma is like rain. The mind is like a cup. The rain does not change, but a small cup overflows. A wide cup does not. People think that transforming karma means making the rain stop falling. But Buddhism says you cannot control the rain. What you can do is widen the cup. And the question becomes very different. No longer, how do I erase karma before death? But instead, is my mind wide enough to receive the karmic result? But how does the mind widen? not through willpower, not through hope, not through pleading. The mind widens through familiarity. Familiar with observing instead of reacting. Familiar with staying instead of running away. Familiar with seeing directly instead of telling stories. And here is a truth very few people want to hear. The moment near death is not when you learn how to widen the mind. It is when you use what you are already used to. If throughout life, when pain appeared, you responded with resistance, then at the final moment, resistance will come first. If throughout life, when loss appeared, you clung, then at the final moment, clinging will erupt violently. But if throughout life you have ever paused, even just a few times, to look at pain without running, to breathe with fear without pushing it away, then at the final moment, the mind has a familiar path to return to. This is why some people undergo powerful transformation before death. Not because they do something new, but because a final, deep seeing has fully ripened. A seeing that does not come from last-minute effort, but from an entire lifetime of colliding with suffering without turning away. And right here, another misunderstanding needs to be cleared up. Buddhism does not deny the value of rituals, prayers, or supportive chanting. But these things do not work like miracles. They do not erase karma. They create conditions for the mind to panic less, conditions for the mind to remember a direction of return, conditions for the mind to not be pulled away too quickly. If a person has lived with awareness, those conditions help them enter a familiar path. But if a person has never become familiar with their own mind, then no matter how complete the ritual is, the mind will still be swept along by old momentum. This may sound harsh, but it is deeply fair. No one is punished. No one is favored. Each person continues only with what they have trained. And this is where the biggest question begins to appear. If there is no such thing as transforming karma at the final moment, if everything has been prepared long before, then where is human freedom? The answer lies in a very small place, but one that is profoundly deep. Freedom does not lie in choosing karma. Freedom lies in how we are present with karma. You cannot choose the pain that appears, but you can learn not to become that pain. You cannot choose the loss that happens, but you can learn not to collapse with it. And when death arrives, that freedom either exists or it does not. Not because of a single moment, but because of how an entire life has been lived. That is why, when asking, can karma be transformed before death? Buddhism does not answer yes or no. Buddhism asks in return, how have you lived before thinking about death? If your whole life you only hope to fix things at the last moment, then the last moment will expose that very hope, a clinging to expectation. But if throughout your life you have ever, even rarely, faced the truth without running away, then the final moment may become a very peaceful moment. Not because karma has ended, but because the one carrying karma has changed. And this is the crucial point that many people miss. You do not transform karma when you die. You reveal the degree of freedom of the mind that you have cultivated while living. But wait, if this is true, then it leads to an even bigger question. If the final moment reflects an entire lifetime, then what is each moment of living right now preparing for? There is a very strange truth. The deeper we speak about death, the more we must return to life. Because when we look closely, the entire question, can karma be transformed before death, is not actually about death at all. It is a question about responsibility for living. People ask this question when they are afraid they have gone too far, afraid they have missed their chance, afraid it is already too late. But Buddhism does not answer with comfort. It answers by returning the question to the present. Not, what can you do before you die? But, what are you doing with your mind right now? Because every small moment in daily life, when you are insulted, when you experience loss, when things do not go your way, when you are in pain, is a rough draft. For the final moment, have you noticed? When we are hurt, we usually react very quickly, explaining, blaming, defending, shutting down emotions. These reactions are not bad. They are very human. But if our entire life is spent living this way, then at the final moment, we will react the same way. And this is exactly what many people have never dared to face. There is no sacred moment at the end of life that arrives to save you from your own habits. There is only one truth: how your mind has been trained. And yet, right here, good news appears. Very quietly, very modestly, but very real. You do not need to wait until the end of life to begin transforming karma. Because every time you do not react the old way, you weaken an old momentum. Every time you pause for just one beat before speaking, you widen the cup a little more. Every time you stay with an emotion without adding another story, you train the mind in a new path. No one notices. No one applauds. Nothing looks spectacular. But those moments are exactly where karma is truly redirected. Not transforming karma by erasing the past, but transforming how you carry that past. There is a very beautiful image in Buddhism. Karma is like a heavy load. The one who carries karma without awareness breaks their back. The one who carries karma with awareness still feels the weight, but walks upright. Pain is still painful. Loss is still loss. But suffering is no longer there. And when death comes, this difference becomes brutally clear. Not everyone leaves in light. Not everyone smiles. But there are people who, amid pain and disintegration, still have a space of stillness. That stillness does not come from good karma. It does not come from luck. It comes from a lifetime of returning to oneself, even clumsily, even rarely. And here are the three most important things we can take as lessons for ourselves. First, karma is not a sentence. It is momentum. And momentum is only powerful when there is no awareness. Second, there is no transforming karma at the final moment. In the sense of starting over, there is only the revelation of what you have lived with your entire life. And third, what is truly transformed is not karma, but the mind. When the mind is wide enough, karma still arrives, but it no longer drowns you. So if you are listening to this video and feel a slight unease, that does not mean it is too late. It simply means you are beginning to see clearly. And seeing clearly is the only beginning that Buddhism recognizes. You do not need to become a better person overnight. You do not need to fix your entire life. You only need, in this very moment, to ask yourself one honest question. When discomfort appears, can I stay for one more beat? Just that one beat is already a redirection. And perhaps that is the most honest way to prepare for the final moment. Not through fear, not through blind hope, but by living in a way that when everything falls away, the mind no longer has to run. Before we end, I want to leave you with one question. If the final moment of a human life only reflects how we have lived, what shape do you want that moment to take? If this video made you pause and reflect, please like, subscribe, and leave your perspective in the comments below. See you in the next video.